Transport infrastructure is one of the main contributors to the increase of carbon emissions. But decarbonising the industry is likely to be challenging, given that the transport demand has continued to rise. In the OECD, passenger transport volumes in 2050 are expected to be 10% to 50% higher than in 2010. Freight transport is expected to grow by 50% to 130%. How will these twin challenges play out? In this video, the Economist Intelligence Unit investigates how to make transport more sustainable.
The global population is expected to grow by another 2 billion to 9 billion over the next 20 or 30 years. And perhaps even more importantly for the transport infrastructure, the proportion of people living in cities is expected to grow to 80% of humankind by the same period. What that means is there's going to be a much larger number of people dependent on transport infrastructures for the basic stuff of life.
Globally speaking, there are two big challenges in the transport sector, which are, I would say, global concerns, being the question of emissions, both CO2 and pollutants, CO2 gaining over in terms of concerns, and the security of energy supply. So it's really a question of how quickly do we have to act, because technology is getting better. You have the feeling that if you waited just another couple of years, it could be a lot more effective, it could be a lot cheaper, but the question is, do I have the time to wait those 2 years?
Growth in energy consumption in the transport sector will be focused mainly on oil, but the rapid growth will be seen in the emerging economies as opposed to the established developed economies in the OECD. So there's several different reasons for that. Firstly, there's more rapid economic growth in emerging economies. You have much more quickly rising living standards, also probably faster population growth. So what we see is much faster oil demand growth in the transport sector in countries such as China, India, and other developing economies outside North America and Western Europe.
Achieving energy-conscious and future-proof transport requires innovative thinking. Which technologies will enable the necessary increase in transport supply and reduction in carbon emissions?
I think there needs to be, but there will be, a revolution in transport, logistics and infrastructure over the next 20 to 30 years. But I don't think this is going to look like some of the revolutions of the past. When the mail coach arrived, or the metalled road, or the internal combustion engine, we were seeing technologies that were very much internal to the transport infrastructure.
We are seeing in this last 2 or 3 years and the upcoming 2 or 3 years, there is incredible progress, both in gasoline and in diesel engines and what have you. I mean, even on airplanes, on ships, you have, in all the sectors, you have big improvement there. But there's a limit to that. And so on the mid and long term, you will most likely have a mix of solutions, which could be something related to an increased penetration of renewables for production of electric power associated with the smart grid, and then an increase of the penetration of the electric vector into the vehicles.
The move to electrified transport is a process that is evolving, and we do expect to see a noticeable trend towards sales in hybrid vehicles from about 2020 onwards. All electric vehicles and natural gas vehicles will grow very incrementally, but they're starting off from a very small base, as hybrid vehicles are, but we'd expect hybrid vehicles to have a much greater impact, and that we should see that from the start of the next decade onwards.
Our view is that this bringing together of instrumentation, interconnection and intelligence can bring about what we call smarter transport. And that will enable us to get dramatically improved throughput through both today's infrastructure, today's traction technologies, today's vehicles, and also the improved technologies that we'll see in the future.
New technologies challenge the way we think about transport and how we use it. To be successful, transport innovation depends on governments, businesses, and consumers working together.
In general, transport investments should only be done when you're pretty sure that there is a consistent stream of added value. As a general principle, those costs should be covered by the direct beneficiaries, which are the users, the indirect beneficiaries, and then also taxpayers, now or in the future. The way to do it is to really look at each project and see who is benefiting from this. To what extent is it a matter of public interest, private gain?
Are governments going to step up to that responsibility? That remains to be seen. What I will say is that we have the capabilities, we have the technology, we have proven cases where that can happen. And I think working together, we've got reasons to be very optimistic about this.
The problem is going into action, because transport is so embedded in the lives of people and of companies that any change you do will probably leave some people or some companies worse off, in particular if you're wanting to move into sustainable solutions. And that means they will always have to face some resistance. So awareness is a very important thing to increase acceptance, but the commitment of governments to awareness has not been followed in most cases by a similarly visible commitment to action.
I hope that in 2050 it will be a connected car. I'm certain that there'll be more people in it on average, that the car will be a self-propelled data center. It will be helping the driver or the passenger to get where they need to be. It will phone ahead for a parking space. It will know of the instance on the road and reroute automatically. It will probably be doing a substantial part of the driving by itself.
It's something that has to be done with consistent policy. I would say the main thing that governments can do is to have a clear view of where they should go and then provide a clear path for improvement of sustainability and do the measures progressively with the help of transition measures.
This can't be done on the basis of building a better yesterday. We can't extrapolate what we've got to the future and expect to be able to manage all these challenges. We have to do things differently and we have to do them better.